Hi, I'm Ivan Tan from Republic of Singapore. I am an assistant pastor with Wesley Methodist Church. I'm involved in the baptism and membership class ministry as well as the small groups ministry. Those are my two responsibilities. The reason why I went into theological education was because I was formerly a corporate lawyer, but one of my mentors actually spoke to me and said, is there something changed in your heart? Are you beginning to see something else that God is saying to you? You speak about mentoring young people. You're not talking very much about law. And so that led me to come to Asbury to study theology and to pursue a possible calling of pastoral ministry. So I came here and I did my MDiv 2003 to 2006, and I went back to Singapore to work as a pastor. Well, one of the strangest things that I've experienced was we do baptism and membership class 3 times a year. And more we begin to see people walking into the church who are not Christians, but they see it as a church, as a place they could find God. And they come for baptism membership class after some time, but they have not received Christ at all. So during baptism class, one of the guys actually came up to me and said, I'm not yet a Christian. Can I attend baptism class? So I said, sure, we believe in prevenient grace. Then he looks at me and says, what is prevenient grace? And I say, oh, it's the grace that God brings you to find faith in Him. So he said, all right. A couple of weeks later, he comes up to me and say, you know the prayer, the sinner's prayer? I prayed it last week myself. Is that okay? Is that right? Then I said, oh, perfectly all right. Then he smiled. He looked at me again and said, last Sunday I came down for Holy Communion. Am I allowed to do that? I'm not baptized yet. I looked at him, I smiled, and I said, perfectly all right. He looks at me, and then he says, now I understand what prevenient grace is. And I said, awesome. Wesley Methodist Church is the first church in Singapore and Malaysia for the Methodists. It is the largest. We have about 4,300 in attendance every weekend, 10 services. I'm doing small groups ministry. Every time people come to the church, if they don't get into a small group, you get lost in the church. So we try to help everyone in baptism class be part of a small group, and then we help them to form a group, and we monitor the growth of that group. So our mission for small groups ministry is growing groups that bear lasting fruit, coming from the Gospel of John. And my joy is to see the number of groups being formed every batch. And this year alone we have formed 12 groups, and we are quite excited about it. The Christian community, though we are only about 16-17%, we have a lot of influence because many of our members are involved in government, in the marketplace, in organizations. So we have an impact in the larger community, even though we are a very small minority.